Hello students, this is the presentation for Empathy Day 2. So it's a class that first period should have had on 8/26 and 7th period should have had on 8/27. So we talked at the end of last class, Empathy Day 1, about different labels, and we were talking about labels that we have here at school, or people put labels on teenagers. And we said some things like jocks or nerds or gamers, or like this kid in the picture, emo or goth. So the question is, why do we label people? So labels are for jars, not people, but why do we label people? And are they good or bad? And do some groups have more power to label than others? And do some labels hurt more than others? And are there people that can be in more than one group? We label people because we know where they fit in or where we fit in, and to make sense of things. So think about, if you're part of a group, then you say, oh, okay, I know where I belong. Now, this may be hurtful or not, depending on what label it is. So some labels are good, some labels are bad, but they're still not accurate all the time. That's why it's kind of problematic. And some groups have more power to label than others. So think about popular kids versus not popular kids. And are there people that can be in more than one group? So think about the jocks, the kids who are both athletic and academic. They could be both a jock and a nerd. Okay, the problem with labels is that they lead to stereotypes. And stereotypes are generalizations used to define a group of people based only on the appearance, words, or actions of one or just a few members of that group. So you're not basing it on the individual person you're speaking to, you're basing it on someone who may or may not fit that mold that person is. So, for example, if you're tall, you must play blank. So if you're tall, you must play basketball. So just because basketball players usually are tall, people think that everyone who is tall should probably play basketball, which is not true. Or think about, oh, you're this person's brother or sister. Oh, you must be like this. So they judge you based on another person. It's a stereotype. And please be careful with comments, especially about a person's ethnicity, skin color, or religion, because those stereotypes can lead to harmful consequences. So, for example, if we say jocks are blank, I want you to just think about what you would put in that blank. Now, you may not believe it, but we generally have an idea or a stereotype that jocks are, and in some of my other classes I had, that they're not as intelligent. One of the ones I loved is jocks are people who like sports. This is true. But we're looking for the stereotypes that are necessarily involved. Jocks are mean is another one. So these may not be true for every single person who defines themselves as a jock, but if we label someone, we kind of associate that with them, and that's not fair. Another one I love is all teenagers are blank. And I can't remember all that I had, but the one that sticks out in my mind is all teenagers are irresponsible, or all teenagers are sleepy, or all teenagers are crazy. These are all suggestions I had in other classes. They may or may not be true. Because it's saying all here, that's the part that's problematic. So you don't want to be labeled as irresponsible or sleepy just because you're a teenager. You want people to know you for you. So this is the problem with stereotypes. Often a label begins a stereotype. The label turns into a stereotype. The stereotype leads to making fun of a person or being mean to them. And remember when we talked about, if you think someone is different than you, then you often think that they're not as good as you, they're inferior. So you think you're better than them. So that can lead to bullying or harassment, prejudices, which we are going to talk about next class, discrimination, anger, hate, or violence. So what I'm comparing this to is in Star Wars when Yoda says fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. So it starts out with something little, something reasonable like fear. And the same thing is kind of happening here. We start out with labels, and it doesn't seem that bad. But if we let it go further than labels, we go to stereotyping, making fun, mean, it can lead to hate and violence. So we should probably just nip it in the bud here. If we don't label people, then hopefully it'll never get to this point of violence. The problem with the stereotypes is that it boxes people in and it doesn't let you know them for who they really are. And if people are stereotyped, they can never get out of that stereotype. It's really hard. And stereotypes are also lower our empathy. Remember, all of this is trying to see someone else's point of view. And if you label someone, you may not be able to see their point of view as an individual person. You're just seeing, oh, everyone who is like this, or I'm sorry, everyone with that label is like this specific thing. Okay, and our words have power. So I want you to think about a time when you were personally hurt by something someone said, and I want you to think about how it made you feel. So I want you to think about that. Like, seriously stop and think when you were personally hurt by the words of someone. Words have power. They have power to hurt or build up. So I also want you to imagine that someone just gave you $86,400. Now this is fake. This is our imaginations, right? But I want you to imagine that someone gave you $86,400. And what you would do with that, what you would spend. Okay, now I want you to imagine someone then stole $60 of that $86,400 from you. What would you do with the money since someone stole $60 worth from you? Would you throw the rest of the money away just because someone stole $60 of it? So there are 86,400 seconds in a day. Do not let someone's words for 1 minute, 60 seconds, ruin the other, and my math is wrong on this and I forgot to change it. I apologize as the math teacher. 86,340 seconds left in the day. So think about a time when you were personally hurt by words. If it made you feel, and this is often something I struggle with, that 60 seconds of them saying something hurtful ruined the rest of my day. So they stole that $60 and then I threw the rest of the money away. So our words have real power. So we want to make sure they're as positive as possible, and even if somebody says something negative to us, we don't let it ruin the rest of our day. So I want you to think about a time when you said something hurtful to someone. So think about how your words affected them. And I also want you to think about, have you ever been so hurt by someone's words that you permanently changed in some way? So someone made fun of what you ate in the lunchroom, so you no longer brought that to school with you. Somehow you permanently changed based on something someone said. So with that in mind, I want you to think about, use your words for good and not bad. So if you have words, make sure that you're not using them for bad. And we can't control what other people say, but we can control not to say mean words ourselves, to speak up to the mean person and tell them to stop, and to stand up when I hear mean words being said to someone. So these are all things that you can do. There are things that you have power to do, to change. And your final thought for today is I want you to try to set this goal that I will try to use my words for good. So I want you to think about that in the coming weeks, that you're going to try to use your words for good, not for negative.